Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Welcome to what I think is a dwindling number of YouTube services left for us. More about that in a moment. Some quick reminders. Tomorrow afternoon, we are having our social justice spring extravaganza celebration to make signs for our favorite causes, including lawn signs to adorn our Black Lives Matter banner, which has been moved, that will list the names of various Black victims of violence. So that's tomorrow. It begins at 1 o'clock if you'd like to join Connie Grossman, our great yoga teacher, for an outside session of gentle yoga. 1:30 is when we'll begin the sign making. It'll be a wonderful time to see each other in person again. Another reminder, there is no service next week, nor will there be next weekend any classes as we observe Memorial Day. That's our usual custom. We will return the following week with our Pride Shabbat, and I'll have a special guest to talk to us about the history of the fight for LGBTQ plus rights here in Michigan. Now, I said a dwindling number of services on YouTube. We are looking now towards the possibility of reopening for Friday night services as early as July. Much of this depends upon matters beyond our own control, but there is optimism afoot. I will also say, and I'm happy to announce, that beginning the weekend after Memorial Day, we will start having classes in person for fully vaccinated individuals. For those who are unable to get the vaccine or who still want to socially distance, we will make accommodations. Those who refuse to get the vaccines, however, that is not an option in our congregation. We will be hosting at least 2 classes early on. We will also be hosting other small group gatherings. If you have a gathering of men or family of women or another group that you generally have met at the temple with before, you will need to make advanced arrangements with Anne Marie Fisher, our executive director. And I should note that the Socrates program, for the time being, will remain online. So this is something to look forward to, and we're very happy about it. What we are, of course, less happy about is what has been going on in the land called by some Israel, by others Palestine, but dear to both peoples. I want to share with you tonight a prayer, if you will, written by a rabbi named Tamara Cohen. As is our custom in humanistic Judaism, I've revised it ever so slightly. It is human-centered to begin with. And it begins with a quote from the Book of Lamentations, from those days when the Judeans were exiled from their land, their temple torn from their hearts. Habitu u'ra'u, im yesh machov le'mechovi. Look carefully and see if there could possibly be pain like my pain, like the one bestowed upon me. That's how it feels now. That's how it felt to the lamenters exiled and temple shorn. That's how it feels now to each grief-racked mother, father, sister, son, family, nation. Habitu u'ra'u. Look carefully and see if there could possibly be pain like my pain, like the one bestowed upon me. No pain like my pain. No exile like my exile. No land like my land. No desolate city like my desolate city. No heart like my own aching heart. No fear like the fear of my people. No genocide like our genocide. No humanity like our humanity. No right like our right. No wrong like their wrong. No rage like my rage. No pain like my pain. Immediate and raw and righteous, ancient and true, and etched in our genes by history's injustices. Yet if we would only look closer, so that we may see our children in their children in our own. May we look for the humanity in the bleary eyes of each orphan, each grieving childless mother, each masked and camouflaged fighter for his people's dignity. May we loosen our claim to our own uniquenesses, soften this hold on our exclusive right to pain, to compassion, to justice. May all of us, unique and equal humans that we are, come to know the quiet truths of shared pain, shared hope, shared land, shared humanity, shared risk, shared courage, shared peace. Kenyehi, Kenyehi. May it be our will. May it be our will.
Baruch haor ba'olam, Baruch haor ba'adam, Baruch haor b'shalom, b'shalom, Baruch haor, Baruch haor, b'Shabbat.
Adapted from the words of Ellen Dan. May we see the world each day with fresh eyes. May we always know day from night, true from false, wisdom from convenience. May our every step be on firm earth. May we see through illusion to reality. May we bring splendor and joy to all we touch. May we always know what it is to live in freedom. May we be a support to those who have fallen. May we guide those who wander to return to a better path. May our needs be fulfilled. May we draw strength from our community. May we contribute to the splendor that is humankind. May we remember the joy of freedom even in times of bondage. On life's path, may we never know weariness of body, of mind, or of our spirits. We live in two worlds, the one that is and the one that might be. Nothing is ordained for us, neither delight nor defeat, neither peace nor war. Life flows, and we must freely choose. We can, if we will, change the world that is into the world that may come to be. Our ancestors expressed this in words that have come down to us through the millennia. Keep your tongue from evil and your lips from deceitful speech. Depart from evil and do good. Seek peace and pursue it. Let justice dwell in the wilderness, righteousness in the fruitful field, and make that justice roll down as waters, righteousness as a mighty stream. Our guest tonight is Marissa Kovach, a policy strategist for the American Civil Liberties ACLU Michigan. She works on grassroots organization for statewide issues. Marissa is a graduate of MSU with a BA in political theory and constitutional democracy. She's worked for the Michigan legislature, for the Michigan Campaign for Justice, and for Planned Parenthood Advocates of Michigan. She is speaking to us tonight about the issue of voter suppression, particularly here in Michigan, and what the ACLU Michigan and we are doing about it. Marissa, thank you so much for joining us tonight to talk about these important issues. The ACLU is kind of the leader in all of this fight. Can you tell us what's going on? First, I guess we'll focus nationally on voter suppression, and then take a look specifically what's happening in Michigan.
Yes, and thank you so much for having me this evening. So, what we've seen happen over recent months across the country is a proliferation of anti voter suppression efforts being introduced in states across the country and then passing through state legislatures. And Michigan has recently followed suit in that. But what we're seeing happening across the country for many folks who have been working in voting rights for years, it is not surprising, because what we've seen historically happen in this country is that when there is an expansion to democracy, when there are increased numbers of people turning out to make their voices heard in elections and democratic action, that is often met with voter suppression efforts. We've seen that historically with the expansion of the Voting Rights Act during Jim Crow and during the Jim Crow era. Very recently, with the election of President Barack Obama, record numbers of Black and Brown voters turning out to make their voices heard, that was immediately met with a Supreme Court case called Shelby Township that gutted the Voting Rights Act. And what we saw immediately follow suit was that states across the country, similar to what's happened this spring, the states across the country passed hundreds of voter suppression laws that made it harder for voters to have their voices heard, made elections more expensive and burdensome to administer. And then now what we're seeing is the direct retaliation of people in power in states who are unhappy with the way the majority of Americans made their voices heard in November 2020, responding with what power they do have right now in order to stifle those voices. And we're seeing that in the form of laws being introduced and passed across the country, like notably Arkansas, Georgia, Arizona, and now Michigan following suit with laws that make it harder to vote with no good reason.
Now, in Michigan, we have some kind of special, strange way of doing this that's happening, because we have a Democratic governor who is committed to vetoing any of these laws. But as we discussed before I turned on the recording, there's a kind of a weird loophole here. Can you talk about that a bit?
There is a weird loophole. So I think what's important to note is Michigan voters want access to the ballot. They want to be able to cast their vote in ways that is accessible to them, that's secure. And we know that because voters turned out in droves in 2018 to pass in large majority a ballot initiative called Proposal 3, also known as Promote the Vote, that amended our state constitution to greatly increase access to the vote, that allowed for same day voter registration, where Michigan used to have one of the strictest voter registration deadlines in the country. You had to be registered to vote 30 days before an election. Now you can register and update your registration too, all the way up to and on election day. That absentee voting is available to every eligible voter, where it used to be denied to a majority of voters, and a number of other measures that increased access. And what this initiative process does is it's trying to skirt the will of what the majority of Michigan voters want. And that is because this particular effort is being driven by the Michigan GOP, and which has majority power in the Michigan Senate and the Michigan House of Representatives. These are policies that they would like to pass. unfortunately for them, not for us, but fortunately for them in this case, Governor Whitmer has vowed that she will veto any bills that make it harder for us to vote, to make it harder for and more expensive for election administrators to do their job and be able to run safe and secure elections. And they're using this kind of little known process in Michigan, which has been used a few times in the past to skirt the governor's veto. So what the real plan is, instead of passing this through traditional legislation, is to put forth a ballot initiative, a policy that they will collect signatures on. They need about 400,000 signatures. They will collect signatures on for a few months, and then they will qualify that initiative for the ballot and submit those signatures. If they've collected enough signatures, instead of this initiative going straight to the ballot so that Michigan voters can decide for themselves if it's something that they want passed into law, the Michigan Constitution sets up this extra step whereby that initiative, that policy law, will go in front of the legislature for 40 days. And the legislature has the option to either vote for it, vote against it, or do nothing. If the legislature does nothing or votes against it within 40 days, that policy will make it to the ballot. And then that step of us being able to decide if this is right for Michigan, if this is what we want as voters, we'll be able to have say in that. The danger is that the legislature has the option to vote for it. And if they vote for it, then it's veto proof. And the governor can't veto it. It automatically will become law. So that means a small, like a minority of Michigan voters who sign a petition, about 400,000, can essentially drive and pass a, a law that restricts access to all of our rights to vote with the help of the Michigan legislature. So that's the real danger that we're looking at now, that will probably be up and running, we expect sometime in the next month or so, and that signatures will likely possibly be collected over the course of the summer.
Do you expect them to be successful? This seems like a pretty complicated process.
It's a complicated process, but there has been success with this in the past with other endeavors on other issues. And the group that's behind this strategy is a group that successfully collected signatures last year in the midst of a pandemic, but collected enough signatures last year to put forth another initiative in front of the legislature. And they did so in a pretty short period of time. So they're planning on using the same infrastructure and folks to help, that they very well could be successful. But for us, we want to make sure that we can try and stop this in our tracks. And the very best way to do that is by spreading the word and educating friends and family who wouldn't want to see this passed, so that when folks are approached with a petition this summer, that they know very clearly what they're signing, that they don't feed into a narrative that they're being presented with a petition that, I believe the tagline that's being used is easier to vote, harder to cheat, which sounds very appealing. But when you look at it, there's a lot of problems in the details of that. And what it really does is it's going to make it harder to vote. And when we know cheating doesn't actually occur or happen, that our elections are incredibly secure and safe. So our best bet is to try and stop this in its tracks and make sure that it doesn't collect enough signatures to begin with.
So what can we do to, besides not signing this petition, but to make sure that we educate folks and help them spread the word to stay away from this poison?
I think spread the word about what the policies are that are going to be so dangerous, that it's going to restrict access to absentee voting, that it's going to rewrite our voter ID law, which will create more barriers, especially for folks who don't have IDs or show up to a polling place without an ID on election day, or requiring voters who want to vote absentee to send a copy of their ID through the mail in order to vote absentee, and a number of other barriers. But really spread the word, talk to your friends and family, make sure that this is on their radar, because our best chance of stopping this is, one, in ensuring that the petition isn't successful to begin with, but also that legislators hear from you, because they're hearing a lot from folks who who believe a lot of the lies and mistruths and conspiracy theories that we're allowed to perpetuate around the election. And they hear from those folks who think that the election was stolen, that our election wasn't accurate, which we know absolutely was not true. We there was an independent audit process that happened right after the election, over 250 audits of precincts across the state that proved that our election was accurate and secure. And elected officials in the Michigan legislature need to hear from you. And I think some of the best opportunities to do that right now is they're also looking at legislation, and that legislation that we know will be vetoed by Governor Whitmer. But it's legislation that still restricts access to voting. And each week there are opportunities as they're looking at these bills and hearing these bills to reach out to them and let them know that you're opposed to these policies as they're working through it before the initiative even reaches them. And legislators aren't often used to hearing from their constituents. Sometimes just one phone call, a few emails from a few constituents can be enough to really grab their attention and make them aware that their constituents aren't in favor of something or are in favor of something.
It sounds like a few of these provisions actually violate the constitutional amendment that the voters approved in 28, when was it, 2018, 2019? Um, so maybe they wouldn't even stand the scrutiny of the Supreme Court, but I understand the urgency of getting out there and thwarting this effort. Anything else that we can be doing on both the local and national level?
I think it's really comes down to making sure your state elected officials are on notice and being held accountable here. Recruit your friends and families and neighbors and share with them what's happening, what's down the pipeline for the next year. And there's power in numbers here, so using that influence and that people power to really try to stop this and make it abundantly clear that this isn't what voters want, and legislators will be held accountable if they support voter suppression efforts.
I think they may be surprised, and I desperately hope this doesn't become part of our laws in Michigan. I think they may be surprised that some of this would come back to bite them backwards, because they used to rely a great deal on absentee ballots, and it only became an issue for younger people who may tend to support Democrats and so forth because of the pandemic, which is essentially coming to an end. And I can see a lot more older GOP types. Not that I want to get partisan here, we are a congregation, but I can certainly see them struggling much more to scan their license than my 25-year-old congregant who has in her phone a scanner.
I
So
I think that is absolutely correct. The points of access to voting that are being attacked have existed for decades. Ballot boxes, absentee voting without issue. It's only now that those rights and that access has been extended to folks who don't vote the way that certain people in power want them to vote, that these rights are being attacked right now.
And I think that the power of the ACLU's argument has always lied in the fact that they are really concerned for everybody's vote. So when I kid about the older GOP voter, in fact, that person's vote is endangered by this kind of short-sighted legislation, and the ACLU cares about that person as well. Thank
Yeah,
you. Thank you so
absolutely.
much for joining us and clarifying this, particularly this really weird Michigan loophole that I would love to see not employed. And
Same.
I wish the ACLU great success in that. And our congregation, as always, will be very much behind you in this effort. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Eleanor Roosevelt wrote, "Where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places, close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world. Yet they are the world of the individual person, the neighborhood they live in, the school or college they attend, the factory, farm, or office where they work. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice, equal opportunity, equal dignity without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere. Without concerted citizen action to uphold them close to home, we shall look in vain for progress in the larger world." We come now to that part of our evening's program where, as a community, we seek strength and common purpose, turning our minds and hearts toward all those who need our love and support, those who are ill, those who suffer pain of the body or spirit, those who are lonely or have been wronged. Tonight, we extend our well wishes to these members of our community and to their loved ones, to Joe Gaden, Julia Eliason, Karen Tremper Harris, Myron Tink, and Rabbi Peter Schweitzer. May all who suffer know that they are not alone. May they be healed quickly. May they experience a complete recovery, a refuah shlema, the renewal of their bodies and the renewal of their spirits. We turn our thoughts now to those who are no longer with us, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, those of every people and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love, of loss, of life, of death. We recall now our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have taken into our hearts with our own. Next week, of course, being Memorial Day, when we will be off, we take this opportunity to remember those who died in the service of our nation. We also pause for a moment to mourn the recent loss of a longtime member, Inez Clemist. Yehi zichra livracha. May her memory be a blessing. As we continue with our Yahrzeit observance, tonight honoring the memory of Shirley Berman, Elise Biederman, Sidney Broida, Eva Cohen, Samuel Cohen, Alice Cooperstock, Ayala Fuchs, Joseph Gelman, Emma Gelman, Shirley Gotthelf, Howard Andrew Kamani, J. Maurice Cairo, Tony Klarich, Ben Magder, Sarah Morris, Bella Stern, Joseph Stern, Carl Stillwater, Frida B. Williams, Joseph Zickerman, and Esther Zimmer. Yehi zichram livracha. May those whom they left behind find comfort in warm memories of them as they face life in their absence. That's our service tonight as our sort of countdown to returning to normality begins. I wish you Shabbat Shalom. We'll close with this beautiful meditation for peace.
Peace be